This is a really cool tool for switch repair, which allows you to travel through the different layers of the switch PCB. What's up, guys? So today we are working on this switch donor board again that we're going to attempt to get fixed. So this was a board that I bought for donor purposes from a customer because they had a switch that was bent and the bending impacted the motherboard. You can see there's quite a few ripped pads on this corner of the APU, and we also have a few ripped pads underneath the RAM here. And this is pretty common when you have a bend in a board like a graphics card or a motherboard like this. And you can see exactly where the bend is. It's right through here, which is why the corners of these chips peeled up. We also had some ripped pads on the APU itself on the same corner. Now again, this sort of repair is not reasonable whatsoever insofar as the amount of time I'll need to put into fixing this board, even if we can get it to work. It's possible that the bend in the board caused fractures in layers within the board that we won't be able to repair, but I always like a good challenge. So we're gonna go ahead and attempt to fix this board anyways. Last time around, we just did the 2 power regulator chips. We still have to reball and put the RAM back on, as well as obviously the APU after we do some trace repair on the board itself and on the APU. As I said in my last video, this is the kind of repair that you would only really do for data recovery purposes or on a device that is extremely expensive or irreplaceable. In this case, you could get another motherboard for like $100, so this makes no sense to do, but it'll be a fun challenge to get this working. So without further ado, let's go under the microscope and take a look at what we have. So first, what I'm going to do is just try to clean up some of the flux that's here. So I'll just heat the area with some low temperature hot air. Since I've been using this board as a donor board, it is a relatively dirty board. I didn't really bother cleaning things as I was pulling stuff off. Okay, so I've got the board generally cleaned up here, and the first step is going to be to identify which pads we actually need to repair. So before we jump into the APU over here, which is a complete mess, let's start a little bit more simple and start by figuring out which ones of these BGA pads under the RAM area we need to be fixing, if any of them. The first thing to note about BGA pads like these under chips, it doesn't matter if you have RAM chips or an APU or a voltage regulator like the one we did in the last video. There's often going to be certain pads that are either no connects, that are ground, or that are potentially redundant. So you can have multiple pads that are ground, or often you'll have multiple pads supplying power to the chip, and they will all be connected to the same power rail or all be connected to ground. And usually they're grouped up, but sometimes you'll have pads across the chip from each other that are actually the same exact point. So redundancy is a pretty common thing to see with BGA chips, so that's one thing to note. The next thing to note is that you generally have 3 types of BGA pads when it comes to the PCB, and we'll take a look at those 3 types right here. The first type is going to be a pad like this one right next to our ripped pad here, and very likely the ripped pad is of the same type, and these look like no connects. And the reason I'm saying that is because you can see how this pad is completely flat. There's almost no solder on this pad, but we can still see it's completely flat. And we also don't see any traces going visibly to this pad. So it's very likely this actually doesn't even connect to anything at all. And it's just there to complete the grid and support the chip in a physical way. So my guess is that this is going to be a pad that we do not need to fix. And these 2 here seem to be no connects as well, and potentially even these 2 here. The next type of BGA pad you'll see is one like this, where you have a very visible trace going to that particular pad. So you can see these are all going over to the APU and connecting to the APU on various pads that look similar, like these. And the next type are going to be pads like this that have vias in the middle of them that go to other layers of the board. So you can see these pads here that have these dots in the center. While we don't see any traces visibly going to them like these are still going to other layers of the board, and they have vertical traces. So in these cases, these are very obviously not no connects because they have these dots in the middle of them. We can be pretty sure in this case that it's definitely not going to be one of these trace style BGA pads because we don't see any kind of trace going in or around this pad. And I don't think this is going to be one of these types where it has a via in the middle of it going to other layers of the board, because if it was one of these, you would probably see the via underneath the ripped pad, at least a tiny speck or dot right in the center of it. that indicates that it was connected to something at one point. In this case, it just seems blank and like it wasn't connected to anything at all. The other indication to me that this is a no connect is that it's the only pad that was ripped. Oh, except for this bottom right one. I actually didn't see this until just now. But same with this one. This one also appears to be a no connect. You don't see any sort of metal dot underneath the pad or anything like that. So since these are the only two pads on this particular chip that ripped, the no connect pads tend to be easier to rip off the board than a pad that's actually connected to a trace or a via underneath it. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's not actually anchored to anything else metal. It's just sort of held into the board by the PCB substrate. Now, if we go take a look at the APU area here, we see a few other examples of ripped pads that very obviously used to be connected to certain things. So for example, like here, we can see this one was obviously connected to this trace. This one was obviously connected to this trace. But we also see situations like this and like this, where there is a little bit of metal in the center of the missing pad. Now, in this case, it appears as though the via was sort of tinned with some solder somehow. Maybe this was a solder blob next to it when I pulled the APU off. It just sort of tinned the via. But we can also see an example of one like this, where it very obviously has a bit of a via in the middle of it, even though it's not tinned. You can see this pad used to be connected to something or some layer underneath this particular layer. So hopefully you can kind of see the differences. Again, these particular pads here, these three, don't seem to actually have anything in the middle or around it trace-wise. So very likely these are pads we don't need to repair. So when you have damage like this, a good physical inspection is the first tool you can go to sort of figure out which pads should be repaired and which pads you can potentially skip. The next thing to note is that not all pads that are actually connected to a trace or a via underneath it are necessarily required for the device to be able to work. So let's use this example and let's take the multimeter and set it to diode mode. And this is a great way to figure out whether or not the missing pad was a ground pad that you can potentially skip, because there are very likely other ground pads that are present, so you won't need to necessarily repair those ground pads and you can kind of skip them, or if it's actually connected to something other than ground. So in diode mode, as always, we're going to put our red probe on ground. So I'll just use this bit of shielding up here, and we can always test with the black probe whether or not we have a good ground connection, and we do. So now we can try to probe a few of these vias that are exposed. For example, this one here, we can see is very likely actually ground. If you look on the top left up here where it says open right now, you'll see this will go down to about 0 voltage drop, just like that. So that means that this is almost certainly ground, and we could probably just go ahead and skip this pad here. In cases like this, I'll just put a little bit of solder mask on them and then cure it and then call it a day. Let's try this one here. Also appears to be ground. All right, what about this trace here? Okay, so in this case, we're not getting anything. And this makes sense to me because this is very likely going over to one of the RAM chips here, which aren't on the board. So that's why we're seeing no reading there. But we can be pretty sure that this is going to be something we need to repair because it is visually going over to the RAM chips. All right, what about this one down here? Also appears to be ground. All right, this one here is also reading open and giving us no reading, which means to me that it's very likely going underneath a few layers of the board to connect to one of these VRAM chips. Otherwise, we'd probably get a reading from that one. What about this one here? All right, so we're getting 0.885 voltage drop on this particular trace right here. So that's a great indication that this is not ground and is actually a data line or something that we need to be repairing. All right, and the last thing I'll point out before we move on are these types of no connect pads right here. You can see some of these have like a little tail on them. You can see instances of that here where it just sort of has these like little wings on the pads. These aren't actually going anywhere, and these are just no connects. And we can test that by putting our red probe on ground and probing one of these. And you can see none of these are actually giving any kind of reading. So all of these here are going to be no connects. You can see this is an example of the via. So we're getting a reading on that, obviously. And then these have traces going to them, so they're going to give a reading as well. You can see 0.72 voltage drop. And here is a great example of redundancy, same as these here. These are all going to be the same point. But the important thing to know about these types of redundant pads is that in this case, the signal is actually coming from somewhere, and it seems to be traveling actually through this via as well. So you can see we have this trace here coming from this via, and it's actually even coming from this pad. So even though there is redundancy here, it really matters which one of these pads gets ripped, if any. For example, if this pad gets ripped and it rips through this whole sort of trace right here, it's very likely that unless this is ground, which, yeah, so this is actually ground. So in this case, doesn't necessarily matter. But let's pretend for a second that this is not ground and that this is actually like a voltage rail. If this pad, for example, were to have been pulled and this whole area was severed from these pads up here, even though we have other redundant pads, now that this is severed from here, these might actually no longer be connected to the voltage rail because the source may be coming from this via, it may be coming from this via, it may be coming from this trace here. Without any kind of schematic, we have no idea where this sort of voltage rail would start and where it would terminate. So that's also something to note. Even though there is redundancy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to fix those pads. In a situation like this, where we see like one huge pad here, this is very likely either ground or a voltage rail powering the chip. So we can see in this case, we're getting a 0.39 voltage drop. So this actually is very likely some kind of power rail, and it's very common. You'll see a lot of redundancy when you have a power rail like that, or like when you have ground, like with this one that we just looked at. And in this case, if like 4 of these got ripped off, for example, these 4 here, those are the kinds of pads I wouldn't necessarily be concerned about fixing because that sort of redundancy is pretty much covered in this case. It's not like those are going anywhere else. I might be a little bit more concerned if one of these with a via was ripped, but even then, my guess is that these vias have redundancy as well, and they're all probably going to and or coming from the same place. So I just wanted to kind of go through that and go through the visual ways you can decide whether or not to repair various pads just by observing the physical state of the board and the specific pads that are ripped. And the help of a multimeter is always nice to see where things might be going. That being said, if you either have a schematic for the board or if you have a data sheet for the chip that is supposed to go on the board, you're going to have a lot more luck looking at that and looking at which pads actually are supposed to do what for that particular chip, or which pads are going where on the schematic. Unfortunately for us, I do not think we're going to be able to find a data sheet for the APU of the switch. I'm pretty sure this is proprietary chip, and we may even potentially be out of luck for a data sheet for the RAM chips, although let's take a look and see if that's actually the case. So here is one of the RAM chips, and let me just hit this with some alcohol so we can read it better. And here we go, we have the exact DRAM module here. You can see it's 16 gigabytes, and this is just Samsung's sort of surface level like landing page for the chip, which we don't really care about. Ideally, we want like an actual data sheet. So I'm not actually finding a data sheet for this, but we can see this one here, which is not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar. And honestly, this might be similar enough that the pads are going to be the same for our chip. In this case, you can see they just sort of number/letter coded the grid and then created a table. And in this case, you can see there is a sort of arrow here pointing to this corner of the chip, which very likely means that the dot is supposed to go in the top left. We don't get that luxury for this particular chip down here, but my guess is it's going to go in the exact same orientation. But what I'm going to do is pull out another board so we can just double check and see if that's actually the case. All right, so I have another switchboard here, fortunately, and we can confirm that the two are both in the same orientation. These are SK Hynix chips, so they're not the same Samsung chips, but we can be pretty positive that the chips are at least going to go in the same orientation as these ones. And also, it's always a good idea to take a picture of the chip before you take it off, or take note at least of which orientation the chip is in before you take it off. That's one of the benefits of recording everything in my case, is even if I didn't do that, I can go back and look at the footage and see which orientation this was in, if I didn't happen to have another switchboard. So now if we go over to the diagram here, we can see this is the top view of the chip where the index mark is on the top left. So our solder ball we're looking for is the one that's on this corner. However, this here is the bottom view and it's flipped. So you can see the index mark in this case is on the top right of the chip. So the ball that we're going to be looking for is A1. We can see fortunately this is marked as DNU, which I think is something like do not use. You also have NC, which is no connect. So these white ones in this case are not used. which was my guess having looked at the board. And based on this diagram, I can also see that the other two here, right here, these three are also no connects and don't go anywhere. And yes, this one also is a no connect there. So we're in luck that we don't need to actually do any pad or trace repair for these two chips, and we can just pop these two chips back on the board. And you can see based on these three examples here that corners are a very weak area for BGA chips and pads as far as flexibility goes of the PCB. The corner areas of chips like these are always going to be the first to have damage when you have things like bends in the board, while the center pads are always going to be sort of the most resilient. So even though we don't have a schematic for this board, we were able to find a very similar data sheet for these RAM chips here, and we were able to figure out that we don't actually need to repair any of these. If you don't have either, for more popular circuit boards like this one, you can sometimes find board scans online, and this is where people will completely depopulate a board. They will go through the hassle of grinding layers off of the board with special tooling one at a time and scanning each of the layers of the PCB. There are a few different sources for this online for Switch consoles, and here's one that I will put a link for in the description. Huge shout out to these guys for setting up the scans and aligning all of the scans. This is a really cool tool for switch repair, which allows you to travel through the different layers of the Switch PCB and see exactly where things are going and connecting to each other on the various layers of the board. You can use W and S to sort of travel between layers, and you can also flip the board. So this is the orientation that our board is in, and if we zoom in to this pad here, for example, and travel through the layers, you can see this is just sort of like the top layer still, but it just has the coating removed and the components removed. But if we go one layer deeper, you can see you don't see any sort of vias like you do with these here. So we can be pretty sure in this case these aren't actually going anywhere, because they're not going anywhere on this layer and they're not showing up on this layer. In contrast, this right here, which doesn't have a trace going to it like this one, you can see is going through to a via right here and is going to this particular trace, which we can follow and see that it's probably going to the APU. So this is a really cool tool, and we'll definitely be using this tool for checking out the bottom right area of the APU and seeing which pads we're going to need to repair and which pads we can leave alone. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take these RAM chips here, and we're just going to go ahead and reball these and put them back on the board.